Just quick agenda, I'll do an intro, how I got there, state of women in data, challenges women face, strengths for empowerment, and then actionable items. And then I'll leave plenty of time for Q&A and discussion. I'd love to hear about your experiences as well, any questions you have. So why are we here? This tweet really resonates with me. I think I've said every one of these quotes. I don't know if that makes sense. Smart women to me, it makes perfect sense. Sorry, it's just a stupid question. A brilliant woman asking an important and perfectly valid question. And if you're sure it's not too much trouble, a fair woman just made a fair request. Anyone else has said at least one of those, if not all. Yes. So I think it's a common experience, and I think a lot of women today, especially in more male-dominant fields, are a little more passive, have a hard time kind of being confident in their voice and question what they're saying. I know I've been really focused in the last few years of changing my tone and the way I say things instead of I think or just wanting to check, and being very affirmative in what I'm saying and very confident. And it's definitely made an impact on how I'm seen in the workforce and getting my, my way in a lot of conversations. So really quick, who am I? I'm Sarah. I'm originally from the East Coast. I'm a Cape Cod because that's where my parents live today, and I've been going since I was 1. But I really grew up in New Jersey, outside New York City. I've been in Seattle for about 7 years. Really love traveling. With me recently in Italy. Wish I was still there. I have 2 dogs. In the top corner, it's Gaffney and Squire, and then Kaya in the bottom is my best friend. Woo! And that's her dad. She's just an inspiration. She just lives her life the best way, makes friends when she wants and doesn't when she doesn't. And she's just a great dog. So I included her to also balance out the pictures, but she's great. So how did I get here? So this is my long journey. I've been with Nordstrom for just about 14 years. Nice. I started as an intern in stores the summer after my junior year of college. My dad was like, you need a job, you need an internship. And I was like, I like shopping, let's do Nordstrom. Fell in love with the company, fell in love with culture, really wanted to be in the buying office. Nordstrom has a strong promote within culture. So I worked my way through many different department managers positions, both in graphic full-line stores. And then one day I got really frustrated and bored, and Googled master's degrees, sitting at Whole Foods on my lunch break. I came across analytics, and I was like, this makes so much sense to me. It ties my undergrad of business, math, and economics together. So I started my master's degree while still working full-time in stores at American University. And right before I graduated, I was starting to apply for jobs, had no experience in the analytics field, had the academic side, but never really the practical experience. But I had the really great opportunity of meeting Blake Nordstrom, who was the CEO at the time, and just flat out asked, what kind of jobs do we have in analytics? And he was like, oh, we just hired a new VP, I'll introduce you. So from there, he introduced me to the VP. Still really didn't know much of what I was talking about, but he introduced me to the recruiters. Was flown out for an interview, and they saw that I had a lot of great business experience and was able to learn quickly and took a chance on me. Never queried a database. Didn't really know what I was doing my first day. There's a lot of people in this conference room or conference here today that actually helped me through my first times. But yeah, I started as an analyst supporting our digital space, worked my way up to senior analyst over the years, and then about 2 years ago became a manager for supporting our merchandising assortment space. And what I learned in those 7 years in the corporate space and analytics is really just ask questions, ask for help, and then also just that experience of just asking for what you want and then having the skills to back it up. I think that was the biggest takeaway of just flat out asking Blake Nordstrom for a job. You gotta go after what you want, but also you gotta be able to talk the talk and go after it and know when you are. I knew I didn't have a skill gap. There was a skill gap, but I was able to show that I could learn on the job and was eager, and took all the resources around me to be successful. Okay, so what's the state of women today? I have statistics that I already forgot, outside of these really great ones. So 52% of the U.S. workforce is male, but 68% of all STEM workforce is male, so there's definitely an imbalance there. Only 24% of leadership roles are held by women. But a good thing is, women rose 35% in STEM professionals in 2021. So we are seeing growth, which is great. I know when I started as an analyst all those years ago, I was like, I never want to go to management, that seems scary, I'm not confident. I didn't really see a lot of women managers, leaders, and Nordstrom is we are kind of an outlier in our gender diversity statistics, but it still felt daunting, and it still felt like I wasn't the right person for that role. But over the years, I gained confidence. I started to see really kick-ass women in those leadership roles, and change my perspective that I could do it. So yeah, just more statistics on only 26% of data professionals are women. 43 are under 35, so a large percentage are younger, which is great that they're growing. And then the average pay gap is 10%, which is not great. So it's just a sample set of challenges we face, and I would love to hear if I missed anything, but there's the pay disparity, inadequate access to training programs, male-dominated office cultures, inherited bias, lower confidence in skills, perception of work-life balance and actual work-life balance, misconception of being a mom and a professional, and then imposter syndrome. I know I still face imposter syndrome today, but definitely trying to overcome that. I would love to hear if anyone else has any challenges that I might be missing or didn't think about. Yassi?
An increase of on-the-spot feedback.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Increase of on-the-spot feedback.
Just having people believe you when you state a fact.
Well, that's a very good one. That happens a lot. Anyone else?
Expectations of being passive.
Yes. Yes. And when you're not, you're aggressive. Yes. Great.
Getting pigeonholed into.
Sorry.
Getting pigeonholed into.
Yes.
What someone else thinks.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
being a woman.
Yes.
I don't know if this falls into the work-life balance or what, but the assumption that because you have other obligations outside of work, you should automatically be excluded from opportunities.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's my choice to make.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's my life.
Exactly.
Having to kind of reorient yourself after you're back from your maternity leave.
Yes.
You lose the projects and everything, you have to kind of work through it.
Yeah. Yeah. The challenges of maternity leave and balancing. You're still balancing your new life, and you have a child that shouldn't interrupt your opportunities.
Emotional labor, that is a thing, and all the time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, how many people are note takers?
Yes.
I was gonna say something similar, like the work that you're asked to do that maybe isn't related to your job and doesn't help you get promoted.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of that. Okay. I know this. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say there's like almost like this false, there's like this fallacy of like there can only be a certain number of women in a certain position.
We're
It's weird,
meeting
like,
a quota.
competition.
Yes.
The pressure of always having to see your abilities.
Yes. Yes.
And then when you prove your abilities, being seen as a challenge or a threat.
Yes. Okay. I think that's I think we all feel it. And there's probably so many more, but we all face them today and we all overcome them. And then there's also the big one of mansplaining. So I don't know if you guys also do that, I asked ChatGPT what is mansplaining. And I asked them to mansplain mansplaining, and they said that they don't, they're AI, so they don't have gender, so they can't be biased. But it's biased. And then just some really other, like, fun tweets, not fun, but relative tweets around, like, the hardest part about being a female founder is not being able to understand my own business until it's explained to me. Yeah, so I think this all resonates. I've dealt with it not only in my work life, in my personal life. It's been fun going on dates and somebody saying, like, I work as a software engineer, like in technology. I was like, that's great. So I think, like, how you handle it and react to it is definitely a challenge, and I think over time, like, in the moment I want to be, like, very passive about it. But I think there's constructive ways of handling mansplaining. So it's, or learning. I know one of my colleagues reached out to, as an example of, like, I was doing a code review, somebody came in late and asked me if I used Git. We were doing my code review in Git. And so, like, just educating and, like, calling it out when it is happening, because is definitely something that is a challenge in the moment. It takes time, but I think helps in the long run. Yeah. So what are some strategies for empowerment? I really love the black tweet where it says, sitting next to a woman in an airport bar and on the phone doing business, and she just said, the other solution is doing what I said it's doing what I said to do in the first place, and I'm going to pledge my loyalty forever. And she hangs up, I also pledge my loyalty for her forever. There are many times where I suggest things, we go in circles, and then it comes back to what I suggested in the first place. So how do we get to a point where we don't have to, like, go back and try and improve, look to your points before, that I know what I'm talking about, and don't have to have these back and forths and have more constructive conversations for people to see our ways. And I think a lot of it goes to that passive voice or misunderstanding, or you can't be assertive because then you're aggressive. So how do we I can't think of the right word, but, like, how do we get past these moments, and how do we grow from them so next time they don't keep happening? Because it happens so many times, and then how do I really had to, like, take a step back of, like, okay, I'm being passive in this moment, how do I readjust my words? And I've deleted so many just want to check in, or just want to see when you get this done, I need this done by X. And making sure that I'm not hindering myself in the process. So just some, like, relatively straightforward strategies for empowerment. Just raise awareness, advocate for yourself. The only person in charge of your career is yourself. You have to go at that for yourself. I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't say this is what I want to do and flat out ask the CEO of the company that what do we have. But also using resources and people around you to grow and ask for advice. And I always have a really hard time asking for help because I like to solve things myself and I don't like to look weak. But other people know a lot of really good things, and there are things that I don't know. So asking for help and building a community is super important. Effective communication, just making sure you're not being as passive. Establishing credibility, which I think we talked a little bit about in the challenges of, like, showing that you do know what you're doing, and how do you effectively build that reputation. And it is definitely a harder challenge, I think, for women. And it takes time, and it takes just continually working on it, and like I said, advocating for yourself and proving that you belong in the room. It's not necessarily the easiest thing, but also really important to create enforced boundaries, like talking about coming back from maternity leave. Set boundaries for yourself and set boundaries with like working with other people. So like, I have a bunch of moms on my team, and one of them has a hard stop at like 2 on a Wednesday because her daughter has half day, and she set that boundary. She blocks her calendar, and we work around it. So making sure that she sticks with that, so she doesn't lose that part of her life, that really important time that she has with her daughter, and really enforce them. So making sure that like if you do get a Slack off hours, you're not responding in the moment. It's not the end of the world. I always like to sell, like, at Marshall, we sell clothes. Like, we're not doing heart surgery. So, like, it can wait till the morning. Like, it's not an emergency. I don't know about all jobs, but some of them are. Yeah, create supportive environments. If you see something happening to another woman, make sure you're there for them. I love this one at the bottom, like, listening and presenting. I always, like, shake and be engaged, making sure that, like, we are being there for them and not thinking, like, just looking bored or whatever, but being really engaged, because that helps. And then constructively call out bias. If somebody does say something that you disagree with, I was in a talent calibration where we were talking about promotions, and there are some biases around, like one's data scientist, there was a male was getting up for promotion and the female wasn't, but all else they were pretty equal. That got called out, and making sure that we weren't inherently having those biases, because sometimes that happens. And that was a great learning moment for everyone in the room. So really calling those out when you see them, and having a constructive conversation, not just saying like, well, she didn't get it because she's a woman, but really asking the questions so that the person making those decisions are really thinking about it. And just call to action, so just making sure everyone being here today is a great start. And then actionable advice. So I love this chart. My favorite quote started back from when I was on Salesforce, or control the controllables. You can't control things that are outside your control. When it was snowing in Boston and there was feet of snow and no customers were coming in, they would always say you can call them. You can always get up, have sales, control what you can control, don't just complain about it when it's outside your control. And that's some things you should focus on. A lot of these are kind of duplicative of the last slide. But yeah, continuously developing your technical expertise. There's always new technologies and everything coming out, so making sure you're staying on top of it. Building a professional network, mentorship and sponsorship, avoiding that passive language like we talked about, addressing biases, self-advocacy, prioritizing work-life balance. If you're struggling with it, I always find it's really good to take a look at like what you're doing during work and do like must, should, and nice to have, to bucket things into like, what should I be doing and focusing my time on? Am I spending my time not correctly during work, and then it's bleeding into my life? And then being able to reevaluate how am I spending my time at work so I have better work time for my life. Create inclusive cultures, leverage AI tools to identify bias. I love this one. I use ChatGPT to summarize all of my meeting transcripts because I don't take notes. And it's wonderful. And you can ask about, were there any biases? Was somebody talking a lot during the meeting? You can ask it or prompt it questions to help identify those biases. And it'll kind of help you shed light and see like things that maybe you missed. Yeah, great tool. Set boundaries, and then I understand personal limits. Oh, go ahead.
What actual prompt do you use in that? What's your go-to?
I use it a lot more for like who's speaking the most.
Okay, yeah.
Like because I tend to I'm personally one that doesn't like to talk just to talk. Like I like to have a point. So I like to find out who's kind of taking over the meeting and are they really adding value. Depends on the meeting too. Like yeah. And there's a lot of really great prompting resources on Google. Yeah, understanding personal limits, so, oh, go ahead.
Do you mind if I ask another question on that?
Yeah.
Have you ever presented, like if you found in a meeting that like someone was like talking a lot more, did you ever present it and like what did you get back on that if you did?
I have not.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't really tracked it, and I should.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds interesting, but I would be nervous.
Yeah, and I think Microsoft had kind of done that in my,
Oh, sorry.
oh, no, it's fine. This is my last slide. Had kind of like done that where they like were tracking it in meetings and then presenting it, but it was a little bit at the time, I think it was like a few years ago. It was a little controversial at the time.
A little too real?
A little bit. Because it was like in the moment, it was just an automated model versus like me asking a question. But that's a good question of like, should I track it? Yeah. Oh yeah, and then last one, really important, give yourself grace. We're all humans at the end of the day, and I think it's really important to like, if you are struggling or need a time off or a break, making sure that you give that and prioritize yourself over your job. I think that's a really important one that a lot of women don't do. And that's it. I would love just questions, yeah.
Example or scenario for self-advocacy, because I know that one can oftentimes often be interpreted by others as,
Yes. I'm not good at talking about myself, so it's hard. But yeah, I definitely know there's that balance of like, I deserve this job, or how do I get there? I think,
do you ever leverage sponsors or other people
yes,
to help?
always. Yeah, because there was one, I got a counter offer from another company and I went to my manager mainly because I wanted more money. But I was like if you could just like, I really want to stay at Nordstrom, but, and she was like, I'm not gonna tell them that. So like I learned a lot from her, like, no, we're not gonna share that. Like, I'm gonna get you like the promotion and the thing you want. So like, I'm not gonna self-advocacy. I'm not gonna, but something I'm working on, yeah. Okay, so many, okay.
Do you have any tips, I guess, from your experience on like self-advocating for yourself? From your
Yeah, I think like finding like hurtful examples has been helpful. Like I always try, like we do internal promotions where you have to write a doc of like what you've done and all this stuff, and then having like as a data person like hardcore examples is good. Of like I saved the company X amount of dollars, or like for me that's helpful to like quantify it.
How do you balance the like creating a supportive community and like mentoring other women who maybe aren't even your direct supervisees with like this idea that we often end up doing all this like work that we don't get credit for?
Oh, I do so much work.
You could just do that forever. So how do you draw the line? Do you time box it? Do you?
That's a really good question because I'm really probably bad at it. And I recognize that I'm bad at it. I have, especially moving into a manager role from an IC role, like setting limits on my time and realizing what's important and what's not, and delegating things because I would try and take on work as well and then mentor it. I was then hurting myself and I realized that. So yeah, I think time boxing is important, and then reevaluating like how you are spending your time is just super important.
One more question.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, first of all, you're not bad at it, you're learning to do better.
Yeah, thank you. See,
How do you return back from making a reasonable mistake without falling into really passive, overly apologetic?
I own it. I own the mistake. There's times that I mess up the data. My SQL is wrong, and I just say, yep, this is wrong. I try and of course correct. I don't like to dwell on it. I'd rather just fix it and move on. Okay, yeah.
How has your career path been? Is that more like you see 10 years from now, 2 years from now, or you kind of go with the flow?
I go with the flow. I don't like to plan more than like 5 minutes in the future. And definitely like right before I took actually right before I went to grad school, my mom asked me if I would go to grad school because I had a whole bunch of friends going, and I was like, absolutely not, I have no idea. And then 2 months later, I started grad school. So I kind of go with the flow. I have like long-term goals that I want to get to, but like I just want to go into management. I hear. So yeah, it's hard to know. I don't know.